Welcome to No Sleep Frequency, the podcast where every story lingers long after the lights go out.
But, while that intro usually sets us up for psychological tension,
Mm.
tonight we are immediately pivoting. We're on a bit of a forensic mission.
That's right. You, the listener, sent us an extremely compelling source. It's an immediate, firsthand account of this just harrowing encounter at an isolated highway stop.
hmm And this source, we're calling it Excerpts from Texto Colado, it reads less like a campfire ghost story. And, it's more like a detailed incident report, a brush with just pure distilled fear.
So that's our focus. We're taking this narrative as fact. Our job in this deep dive is to basically be the investigators here.
Yeah.
We need to unpack this account, distinguish the verifiable things, the physical fight, the objects found from the more psychological stuff.
Like the figure on the security monitor.
Exactly. And the attendant's truly terrifying shifting motivations. We are hunting for the knowledge within the terror.
And the central question, the core warning that really bookends this whole experience is, if you ever see a gas station that says, last stop for 70 miles, keep driving.
So what exactly is waiting there?
Is it just a lone predator? Is it
That-
some kind of, localized supernatural thing? Or is it something way more complex, like a lethal dual mechanism trap?
It's a search for survival intelligence, really. We
Yeah.
have to analyze the narrator's steps, their moments of vulnerability, and the intricate way this trap was laid.
I think we have to start exactly where the narrator's ordeal began.
Right. The moment their physical state made them an ideal target.
The opening of this account, it establishes vulnerability right away. The danger isn't even external at first.
No.
It's the internal physiological breakdown of the traveler. The narrator says they're 4 hours into a 6-hour drive, fighting off what they clearly know is severe highway hypnosis and microsleeps.
And that detail about microsleeps is absolutely critical to understanding what's about to happen.
It is?
They talk about blinking and suddenly realizing they'd traveled another 50 feet without, consciously being aware of it. This isn't just being tired.
No, this is medically dangerous.
It's a dangerous level of fatigue. They were trying all the classic stuff, turning up the music, rolling down the window, but the account says they were at their absolute limit. They needed caffeine urgently to continue safely.
And this urgency, this internal need to stop now, that is the prerequisite for the trap.
Absolutely.
Had they been rested, they probably would have paid more attention to all the red flags of the location itself. But desperation, it just overrides critical thinking.
They were making a survival stop, not a strategic one.
Exactly. And the setting they pull into just perfectly capitalizes on that. The highway is completely empty. They hadn't seen another car in 20 minutes.
So it's that isolated glow of the sign that works like a beacon, doesn't it? A promise of relief in a total void.
Okay, so let's break down the physical characteristics of this place. It's an old independent gas station. It's not a brand name chain with, standards or oversight.
It looks frozen in time. The text specifically says it hasn't been updated since the 80s.
Right. Only 2 pumps, a small kind of neglected building, and the critical visual cue, that beat-up truck parked around the side.
Which confirms someone's there, an attendant. But it also emphasizes the isolation, no other customers.
The location's primary psychological weapon, though, is that sign.
The hand-painted warning, last stop for 70 miles.
That sign is genius. Truly. It functions as both a genuine piece of road information,
Confirming you need to refuel.
right, confirming you need to stop, and at the same time, it establishes the isolation required for the crime. If you pull off here, you know you are cut off from reliable help for well over an hour's drive.
For a predator operating on this stretch of road, that 70-mile barrier is their guarantee. They can get away with anything.
So the traveler fills the tank, pays, and then, driven entirely by that need for caffeine, they make the second critical error. They go inside.
Which, had they just paid at the pump and left, this whole story might have been different. But that desperation pulls them across the threshold.
And the atmosphere inside, it just immediately ratchets up the tension. We get those sensory details that just scream that something is profoundly wrong.
The harsh fluorescent lights making everything look slightly off, kind of warping your perception. The sparse aisles.
And the coffee station, with pots that have clearly been sitting there, burning for hours. That's a clear sign of neglect and almost no customer.
The soundscape is the final touch of desolation. A late-night infomercial playing softly.
Oh, that detail is perfect. Infomercials are designed for insomniacs, for desperate people. It just reinforces that feeling of being trapped in this dead space of time.
And then we meet the attendant.
Described as maybe 50, Thinning gray hair, severely fatigued, looking a face that just hadn't slept in days.
The narrator notes an immediate but fleeting change in his expression when they walked in. Surprise or maybe worry.
And that initial look, that's the first major point of conflict in the story, isn't it?
Yeah, what was that about? Was he surprised that anyone stopped? Or was he worried because he was expecting someone else?
Or maybe worried about the thing outside. At this point, we have no idea if he's a reluctant victim of this place or it's, opportunistic perpetrator.
He processes the payment slowly, very deliberately. In this pause, it lets him do his quick, crucial profiling. He's scanning the windows, keeping an eye on the lot.
And then he starts the brief interrogation.
Let's analyze that interaction for a second. He asks, driving alone and a long trip.
These are not conversational questions. They're highly efficient data points for a predator.
Right. Risk assessment.
Precisely. They establish isolation, no immediate help available.
Yeah.
They establish high cognitive load.
Yeah.
The narrator is tired, focused on a distant destination, which makes them easily distracted and less likely to fight back.
So this brief exchange just categorizes the narrator as an isolated, high-value, low-risk target.
Which validates deploying the main trap.
And the follow-up is the shock tactic. No drawn-out explanation, no small talk. He just slides a handwritten napkin across the counter.
With that stark, urgent message, you're being followed. Don't go back to your car.
The method here is so important. By making it a covert, written warning, he leverages the narrator's exhaustion and fear without allowing for any immediate argument.
Right. The urgency is amplified because it looks like a genuine act of defiance, like the attendant is risking something to save the narrator. He's immediately casting himself in the role of the reluctant savior.
But the effectiveness of this entire thing, it relies completely on the successful introduction of that unseen threat.
Which brings us to the moment where the story shifts from, psychological profiling to just genuine terror.
The narrator is obviously alarmed by the napkin, but the attendant immediately directs their attention away from himself and onto the central piece of evidence, the security monitor.
He tells them to keep your voice down and just...
This is the core element of the trap. We are introduced to the security monitor anomaly. It's a grainy, black and white feed of the parking lot.
And the narrator sees their own car, and standing right next to it on the passenger side, facing the store, is a figure. Dark clothes, face in shadow.
The terror is visceral, but then the immediate profound paradox, the narrator spins around, looks directly out the window, and the lot is completely empty.
Nothing. The figure exists only within the closed circuit feed. This is where the trap transcends simple human predation and enters the realm of the, inexplicable.
Yeah, I mean, if the attendant were just a killer, he could have relied on the napkin and maybe some fake missing persons reports. But the monitor, that adds a layer of absolute certainty to the terror.
Because it challenges the narrator's perception of reality. If the figure only appears on camera, it suggests either, highly sophisticated electronic trickery like pre-rendered image on the feed
Or, as the attendant suggests, a genuinely non-corporeal entity with specific rules.
And the attendant leans heavily into that second one. He provides the entity's rule book. It doesn't show up when you look directly. And the most crucial rule for his own control.
It can't come in here.
That last rule is the lock on the cage. It transforms this dingy gas station into a fortress. And it forces the narrator to trust the attendant as the sole interpreter of the danger and the steward of their sanctuary.
And the narrator reports watching the figure shift positions on the screen, which just confirms its predatory interest and keeps that high-stakes pressure on.
Now, the narrator is skeptical. This has to be some kind of trick, which is a perfectly rational response.
Of course.
But the attendant has his rebuttal ready, and it is a masterclass in manipulation. Verifiable evidence of local tragedy. Printed news articles about missing persons.
This step is so essential because it anchors the supernatural fear to concrete, real-world outcomes. He's leveraging a documented, genuine mystery.
Let's look at the specifics he provides to validate the danger.
The statistics are horrifyingly precise. 4 people in the last 8 months, all stopped late at night, and, this is the key part, all of them ignored his warning.
So he establishes a pattern, a curse linked to not listening to him.
And the uniform, chilling outcome. Cars found a few miles down the road, engines running, and the drivers still in their seats, with their eyes open.
The missing persons reports confirm that something is happening on this stretch of highway that defies any easy explanation.
But the truly brilliant piece of this trap is the official explanation for the deaths.
The coroner ruled the cause of death as hearts just stopped.
Think about what that implies. If 4 healthy people suddenly die of acute, unexplained cardiac arrest while driving, what are the police going to think?
They're naturally going to conclude fatigue, medical emergencies, maybe some weird localized gas. Not a crime.
Exactly. This perfectly explains why there was nothing to investigate, and it allows the perpetrator to keep operating with complete impunity.
It's a perfect cover for both a supernatural entity and a human killer, using non-traceable methods of violence.
Like the cord we see later.
Exactly. So the attendant isn't just trying to scare the narrator. He's demonstrating that the danger is real, the police are useless, and that he, and only he, holds the secret knowledge to survival.
He's using the documented tragedy of the previous 4 victims to lend absolute credibility to his highly suspicious supernatural warning.
So the narrator is faced with this impossible choice. They're dizzy with fatigue. They can't explain the figure on the monitor. They can't just dismiss 4 documented deaths.
The choice is binary. Risk a mysterious death on the highway by leaving, or risk the suspicious controlling man by staying.
The decision to stay is born of logical fear, despite all the obvious deceitful methods the attendant is using.
This is the moment the attendant wins the first stage of control. He has successfully convinced the narrator that the outside is lethal.
And once that decision is made, he immediately reinforces the confinement. He establishes the rules, about 4 hours until sunrise, and then the controlling action.
The loud click of the deadbolt as he locks the front door.
His justification for it. Sometimes people panic and try to run. It's weak, but the effect is absolute.
The narrator is now physically imprisoned by a man who has just used confusing and potentially fake evidence to convince them that staying is the only option.
At this point, the narrator is relying entirely on the attendant's claimed benevolence, which is an incredibly dangerous position to be in.
For the next hour, the narrator is basically self-policing. They sit, they watch the monitor, they track the figure, and the fear induced by the fatigue, the isolation, and that uncanny figure, it keeps them from questioning their imprisonment.
They're just waiting for sunrise, the established safety window.
Right.
But their necessity to use the restroom, that ultimately breaks the spell.
The need for a bathroom break is what forces the narrator to move away from the safety of the perimeter and back towards the counter. And this leads to the narrative's critical pivot point.
The narrator glances at the security monitor on the counter, and that's when the entire premise just collapses.
This is the aha moment, and it's such a great piece of plotting. The key detail isn't the figure, it's the clock.
The explicit detail is the monitor timestamp, reading 11:47 p.m. The narrator has been sitting there for an hour, having arrived well after 2 a.m.
And their own phone confirms the time is definitively after 3 a.m.
It's a 4-hour discrepancy. The logical conclusion is instant and terrifying. The footage is not live. It's a meticulously chosen loop.
The figure on the screen had never been a ghost or a creature observing them in real time. It was a recording, a highly sophisticated stage prop.
And the threat instantly changes. The entity outside is momentarily forgotten because the immediate lethal threat is the human being standing directly behind them, who has just been exposed as a liar and an imprisoner.
The entire urgent warning was a lie designed to achieve one objective: getting the narrator to voluntarily enter and stay locked in until the attendant was ready to act.
The narrator handles the confrontation with, I think, remarkable composure. They try to maintain a calm voice and just question the camera time.
They're just fishing for the lie.
And the attendant's reaction is the second piece of damning evidence. He doesn't panic, but his whole demeanor shifts, from weary savior to this flat, directive authority figure.
He doesn't deny the timestamp. He just tries to gaslight the narrator back into compliance.
He responds, "You should use the bathroom. You've been holding it for a while."
That is a classic predatory manipulative tactic. He ignores the exposed lie and tries to redirect the victim's attention back to a basic biological need, a position of dependency.
But the narrator is smart enough not to comply. They push back, explicitly confronting him about the footage being old.
The attendant stares back, realizing the trap has sprung. He then falls back on his secondary leverage, the emotional one. You saw the articles. You saw what happens to people on this highway.
But the narrator, now armed with the knowledge of his deceit, can dismiss it. Those could be from anywhere. Anyone could print those out.
And that's the psychological victory that comes before the physical confrontation. The attendant knows he has lost control of the narrative.
He takes a step toward the narrator, still maintaining that facade of external danger. "You should stay. It's not safe out there."
But the narrator is demanding the key to the locked front door, and the attendant's refusal, still justifying it for your own safety, confirms his transformation from protector to outright captor.
The deception is over, and the physical danger is imminent.
The narrator's rapid reaction to back away and seek refuge is key here. They don't fight him yet. They retreat toward the back door, assuming it's a break room. They're creating distance, creating space.
It's an intelligent move. They understand that a direct confrontation in the open store with a locked door favors the person with the keys.
Right.
Retreating into a secondary area offers a chance for an improvised weapon or maybe another exit.
Yeah.
They're no longer focused on leaving the property, but on surviving the man in the room with them.
But that brief hope of refuge is instantly extinguished the second they enter the back room.
The narrator discovers this isn't a break room. It's a storage space, dimly lit, but its contents confirm the attendant is not just a captor, but a serial perpetrator.
The grim discovery validates everything. Shelves line the walls, holding dozens of boxes, each carefully labeled with a date.
And that detail suggests a long-term, methodical operation. This isn't a spontaneous crime. It's a calculated, repeatable process.
The narrator opens the nearest box, and the contents are just heartbreakingly specific and chilling. A wallet, a phone with a cracked screen, a set of car keys, and a driver's license.
These are the essential, irreplaceable identifiers and tools of modern travel.
And let's think about why he kept these items. They're trophies, sure, documentation of his success.
But more strategically, keeping the car keys ensures the vehicles are left running. And that's a crucial detail in the missing persons reports. It reinforces the police conclusion of medical emergency or fatigue instead of, a robbery.
And the recognition is immediate and sickening. The driver's license photo confirms the victim is the young woman from the printed articles the attendant had shown them earlier.
The narrator realizes they've been shown evidence of real crimes. Only the perpetrator was misidentified. The attendant wasn't protecting those people. He was claiming them.
The attendant blocks the doorway. The trap is sprung and his composure is gone, replaced by this grim satisfaction.
He confirms his role without any remorse. They always figure it out, but by then it's too late.
His admission highlights how successful his formula is. He boasts about the isolation. No cell signal out here. Nearest town is 40 miles. He's created a literal void of accountability.
And then he reveals his weapon, confirming the non-traceable nature of the previous deaths, a length of cord.
It matches the clinical nonviolent appearance of the heart failure fatalities. The danger is immediate and lethal.
The narrator is facing an attacker who is confident, experienced, and armed with a specific weapon designed for quiet killing. Dialogue is over.
The narrator's instinct drives them back into the shelves, searching frantically for anything that could function as a weapon.
They're in pure physical survival mode now.
And they find it. A heavy, rusted, solid wrench lying on the shelving. This is a crucial turning point. The victim finds a tool equal to the deadly efficiency of the cord.
It's an improvised weapon, perfectly suited for sudden, close-quarters defense.
The attendant moves forward, still with this eerie level of command, trying to minimize the fight. You don't want to do this. It'll be easier if you just cooperate.
But the narrator doesn't hesitate. They know cooperation means death. They swing the wrench.
The resulting action is decisive. The wrench connects squarely with the side of the attendant's head. The force of the blow causes him to stagger sideways, hitting the wall.
And this is the moment the tables turn. It buys the narrator the few precious seconds needed for a desperate, immediate flight.
And notice the survival strategy. The narrator doesn't engage further or try to incapacitate him completely. They immediately pivot back to the primary goal.
They flee back into the mansion, knowing the front door is still locked.
So the locked door necessitates a different, more violent exit. The narrator grabs a stool from the counter and targets the most vulnerable spot. The plate glass window.
A strategic action. Trying to find a key or engaging the attendant again would just invite more violence. Smashing the window creates an immediate, if physically costly, exit path.
The first swing only cracks the thick glass. The narrator hears the attendant cursing and getting up behind them. The pressure is intense. It takes 3 desperate swings to shatter the glass.
They climb through the window frame. The physical cost is immediate shards cutting their arms and legs. But adrenaline fuels them. They hit the pavement, run for their vehicle.
And the final confirming image of the human confrontation is seen in the rearview mirror as they accelerate wildly onto the highway. The attendant, stumbling out through the ragged, broken window frame, momentarily defeated.
The human threat has been escaped, but the narrative is. It's far from resolved.
The narrator describes driving for an hour without stopping, driven by pure terror and adrenaline. until they reach a legitimate rest stop where they can finally process what just happened.
They call 911, report the violent assault, and the officer takes their statement.
But the focus shifts to the psychological aftermath. The narrator reports their hands shaking, the difficulty holding the phone, and this acute, lingering paranoia.
Constantly checking their mirrors, expecting that truck to appear, unable to shake the feeling of being hunted, even 40 miles down the road.
The authorities are now investigating a violent assault and the discovery of a killer's trophies. It's pretty much an open and shut case of human predation.
But for the narrator, the danger remains profoundly unresolved, thanks to one critical, contradictory image witnessed during the escape.
And this is where the source material introduces the true, lingering dread that defies the easy explanation of, oh, it was just a killer.
Just as the narrator ran to the car, they saw the security monitor through the broken window glass. And despite realizing the footage was a loop, despite the attendant being a human killer, the dark figure was still on the screen.
And the crucial contradiction here is its position. If the footage was a static, hours-old loop, the figure should have been standing by the car where it was first seen.
Instead, it had moved. The figure was standing exactly where the narrator had been standing when the window was broken.
This one detail just demolishes the simple theory that the attendant was purely relying on pre-recorded footage.
A simple loop doesn't dynamically update based on the actions of a live person inside the store. Its presence and its calculated movement suggest that the entity, whatever it is, was observing or tracking the narrator's actions inside the structure in real time.
Even if it could only manifest or be recorded through the camera feed.
So we have to engage with this complex synthesis. Theory A says the attendant was a lone killer using a pre-recorded video and missing persons reports as a tactic. Defeat the attendant, resolve the threat.
But Theory B suggests a far more terrifying reality. The attendant, who was undeniably a killer, was aware of or even working in concert with a real entity. An entity that operates under very specific, location-based rules.
Rules that include killing those who leave the gas station's boundaries via mysterious heart failure.
So the brilliance of this location is that staying or leaving both lead to a specific, unique form of death. It's an inescapable, lethal dilemma.
If the previous 4 victims, following his warning, or maybe never even getting one, chose to drive away, they encountered the entity on the highway. Result: heart-stop deaths.
And if our narrator had stayed inside, they would have been killed by the attendant's cord. The location guarantees death one way or another.
The attendant's operation wasn't really about the entity. It was about leveraging the entity's reality. He used the known, documented danger of the outside as leverage to confine victims, allowing him to conduct his preferred method of killing on the inside.
So why did the figure move only after the escape? If it was bound to the exterior, why move to the exact spot the narrator had occupied during the violent exit?
Well, there are 2 possibilities, I think, rooted in the source material. First, the movement could signal that the entity's rules involve observation or claiming a post.
By violently breaking the boundary, smashing the window, the narrator created a breach.
Right. The entity, which the attendant claimed can't come in here, might have been resetting its observational post, maybe even learning from the attendant's failure to contain the victim.
Or second, and this is more chilling, the entity was watching the entire human confrontation. The attendant's lie about the time was meant to keep the narrator from leaving before sunrise. But the fight forced the narrator to leave violently. The final position of the entity suggests it was observing the outcome of the failed containment, almost taking the narrator's place.
Or perhaps just marking the location where the boundaries were transgressed.
The narrator defeated the visible secondary threat, the human killer, with a rusty wrench. But the primary invisible threat, the one that stops hearts and leaves no physical trace, remains confirmed by that final contradictory image.
The police are investigating assault and murder, but the narrator knows they escaped a fate that had 2 lethal doorways. The entity's movement, from outside by the car to inside where the narrator stood, suggests that the boundary between safe and lethal is dynamic. It's responsive.
This analysis gives us the ultimate chilling synthesis. The knowledge we extract isn't just that gas station attendants can be killers, but that this specific gas station is a nexus of 2 types of death, each one feeding the other.
The key takeaway is the recognition of manufactured urgency combined with documented, verifiable tragedy. When someone provides contradictory evidence, like a supernatural warning, but then locks you in, that contradiction is the alarm bell.
It signals the true, immediate danger is the person holding the key, regardless of whatever spectral danger they promise is outside. The narrator survived because they prioritized critical thinking over paralyzing fear.
This deep dive into the last stop narrative leaves us with a necessary piece of survival intelligence. The narrator's decision to question the timestamp, despite their extreme fatigue and terror, was the single action that allowed them to survive the human part of the trap.
They recognized the blend of psychological manipulation, the looped camera, the locking of the door, while still acknowledging the possibility of the unexplained danger from the missing persons reports.
The attendant used a persistent, localized danger, the thing that causes heart failure deaths, as the foundation for his own human crimes. He wasn't lying about the deaths, only about the mechanism and his intent to protect.
The knowledge gained here is the power of isolation and how manufactured urgency is leveraged to strip away your autonomy.
And so, we return to the central provocative warning. If you ever see a gas station sign that says, "Last stop for 70 miles, keep driving."
We now know why. The danger is inescapable. What is the precise mechanism of this danger, and why did the figure move only after the escape?
Was the entity simply resetting its position, or was it claiming a new observational post, learning from the attendant's tactical failure? That unresolved knowledge, that dynamic, shifting threat, is the ultimate key to avoiding whatever fate awaits the next weary traveler who pulls over.
The fact that the entity remained on the screen, mimicking the narrator's final position inside the store, suggests that the gas station is not just a place where a killer stops, but a place where something non-human is actively observing. It's waiting.
It's waiting for the next person to enter the lethal perimeter.
If this story stayed with you, let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the episode and subscribe to No Sleep Frequency for more stories that refuse to let you sleep.